So Multiview 2 is the next direction to go, and this looks like this. This part, by first glance, seems a lot more complicated, okay, and what I'm looking at is this one right here. And it's not too awful bad, as they'd say in the South, but yeah, it's really not. And I think the thing that you got to remember is you want to go ahead and work off of the biggest um, the longest and the tallest and the widest aspects of everything first. So if you could break this down, I don't know why I always think about this like a block of cheese, but it could be a block of clay, it could be a solid block of plastic, maybe because cheese is easy to slice. But if you were to think about this as the overall block at its widest point, at its tallest point, etc., if you were to slice down into it, um, it's just removal. Okay, so that's this method of offsetting and trim. I think is really just a tool of removal. Okay, um, so I'm going to move this over a little bit, and I'm going to attack this from a front view first. Okay, so again, I'm on an object line layer. And I can tell you if I kind of count, and sometimes you have to look into the guts of the object, kind of like imagine that it's an X-ray. So if I look at this, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 6 wide, and at its tallest, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 at the tallest point. Okay, so if I did a rectangle or a line, I can go over 6, up 4, and then again it would be back over 6, and then down 4. All right. And the front of this is not too bad because if I look, I have this front face that is up 2 and it's 3 wide, and then it drops down 1 and then it goes over 2. So I'll try this, and I'm going to just go ahead and use an offset. Remember, that's O space if you're using hotkeys. And I'm going to try to type in 2. Okay, so this is segmented off this portion of the box over here, which is 3 wide. So I'm going to go ahead and offset 3 in this case. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of what I don't need. I don't need this portion right here, and I don't seem to need this portion right here. Okay, and now I want to go ahead and deal with this other portion. Okay, this right side of the object, or this lower kind of shelf, is a height of 1. So I'm going to go offset 1 and bring this upward. Okay, and now we can see there is no division here in this face. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of that, and we're going to get rid of that. And so far, you should see the exact same thing on this first face, with the exception of the fact that we have this one notch. It's so hard to do this because I'm like recording backwards, but this one notch, which is over 1. Okay, so easiest way to do that is just go offset 1 and bring that over, and that shows us the edge right here where that notch is taken out. Okay, so now let's deal with getting the tallest point up here. All right, so if I work off of this, if I come over 2, I'm going to go up to a height of 3. So in this case, I'm going to offset this right side, the right edge, over 2. And guess what? This completely corresponds because a height of 3 here, right, plus the 1 here is equal to 4. So it's the same. So that's like plugging in your answer in math. So I wouldn't see that going through that face, that front face of the object, nor do I see anything on the right, right? So that's pretty straightforward. And then we get into this slope portion, which is a little bit goofy, right? So we go over 3, and then it looks like we come over 1. So each of these boxes is 3. And I want to stress that I'm not at any point trying to go ahead and guesstimate. Okay, if this is right around here, I'm going to call that 1. Okay, but I can see flat out that this is 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and offset 3. I'm going to come over here, and So this has kind of started to make this overall shape, right? But this portion down the side comes forward 2, and it's also down 1. So I'm going to go offset, bring it down 1, and that means that this upper corner becomes removed. Okay? And this portion becomes removed. And that portion, this portion becomes removed. And that portion is removed. Okay? Very clearly here, you can see on this face, I go up a height of 2, and it's over 1. Okay? So up a height of 2 and over 1, which means that if I just come up 1 more inch right from there and then just connect the dots, I've now completed the front view. Okay, and since I did a real nice job, I'll do text one more time in this case. Well, I guess, and this is probably like the last time I'll show text. But again, when I draw text, I want to click this drop down right here. I want to go to my dimension layer, which is going to contain our text. And I click the A up here, which is going to then change my cursor. And I just draw a text box. And then it gives me a text editor right here. This kind of looks just like Microsoft Word or Google Docs. And I'm just going to type in the word front. Please remember that we're using all capital letters. And this is a little bit small, right? So again, I just use the scale button right here under mirror. And it says that I want to pick a base point. So I select. And if I wanted that text to be 50% bigger, I would type in 1.5. All right. If you type in 50 or if you type in 0.5, right, it's going to make it smaller. Okay. And then again, like I said, the thing that I'm always sensitive about is, getting just a neatness thing. And you do want to click it and shrink that right triangular grip down. Okay. Now, once I've done that text, I can just go ahead and copy it. And once I've gone to the trouble of sizing it and editing it, I never draw it again. I just copy text and then I say top, right? I just highlight it and then I click this, right? Double click it and go ahead and say this will be the right. Okay, so when we talk about side view, we do want to label them specifically, whether it's a right or a left. Okay, and I'll go ahead and put these up here as a reminder that I have to move those. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on the top. This is perfect. All right, and again, my trick is I go up to a construction line. I don't always change these layers like I'm doing here, because I can usually remember that I need to delete a line. So I don't always change them, but anyhow, if it helps, it helps, right? So if you look at this object again from the top, okay, you can see that the overall object is 4 by 6. Nothing changes, okay? It's 4. The depth of the object, you could really say, is 4 from front to back. So I should be going over 4 here and 6 here, right? And again, what was the purpose of this yellow line? That's our check and balance, right? If we align this corner with this and we draw another line that's 6, this should align perfectly, right? And so you've checked, like, this object isn't bigger or smaller at any point, okay? So I'm going to kind of work from, I don't know if I would say, I'm just going to kind of attack this from easiest to hardest possibly. Or I really don't know what's the best way. I'll kind of go from right to left. The 1 by 1 notch is really easy to take care of. So I go offset 1. Shoot, I fat fingered something there. And I go this way and I go that way. Okay. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to trim this out. And I'm going to trim that, and I'm going to trim that. Okay. So that is the overall base of the object, right? And then if I look over here, I go over 2, back 2, over 2, or over 1, and then back 1. I really think the easiest way to do this is that thing that I showed on the first multi-view, which is to go ahead and lock the construction line layer, okay, or the object line layer, and turn on construction. And I'll show you why. Because now I can draw right on top of this to get myself over 2. So I type 2, and then I come back 2, and then I come to the right 1, And if I did everything right, if I type in 2, it should intersect right back there, okay? So this is actually on this layer, okay? So I selected it and I changed it to this layer. And since this is frozen, the whole reason I said if you freeze a layer, watch what happens. If I try to erase it, if I try to move a frozen layer, nothing works. So this, in this case, I don't want to get a line on top of a line and confuse them. So I can just go ahead and delete just like so, okay? And then again, we dealt with this and we said, well, this is over 1, right? So all I have to do now is come back and just say, okay, this is over 1, and this completely aligns with this. So in this case, I'm going to go back to using my offset. Okay, and I'll go back to object lines, and I go offset, which means that I can go, let's see, what, over 1 and forward 2, right, from the back. So I'll go offset 2 from the back. Oh, look at that. It puts me on that exact same line, and then offset over 1. Okay, it's looking goofed up again. We've done a little bit of, we've confused ourselves, right? But we're going to trim, and we know that this does not project forward, and we know that this is kind of like one overall piece. And here's the issue you have now. There's a line on top of a line, if you can see that, right? So you do want to delete that, and I'll tell you the reason why is that when you, oh, and this is no longer here also, right? That's a goner. So you can see it starting to happen. The reason you never want a line on top of a line is when you print something, it'll actually print darker. That's kind of the primary reason. So we've now constructed the top view, except we're missing one thing, and this is usually the area that students kind of go wrong with this, okay? So we have this slot that has to get drawn, okay? And really, this is an arc, and if you look at that arc, it is a 1-inch diameter, okay? These are all inches, and that completely corresponds. So in rather than trying to figure out the position, the radius of the arc, if I can tell that that's 1, I could just use a 1-inch circle and a 1-inch circle. So if you look at this, this kind of clears it up a little bit. This intersection right here, this point on the grid and this part of the grid, they're 1 inch apart with a 1-inch circle. So how do I figure out that position? Well, if I offset from the 1 inch from the right, it places me right here, correct? So now this is really not part of the drawing. So again, to sort it out and keep myself squared away, I'd put that on a construction line, okay? And if I come 1 inch down this line from the back, okay, then I would get a center for that circle. So I'm going to go ahead and offset 1 inch. And I'm going to go ahead and match properties. Click this because this is really not part of the drawing. It's just a location. I'm just using this for a location. Okay. And again, this second line is 1 inch away from the first line. So I'm going to go offset 1 inch. So this would be the location of the second circle. All right. So it might be a while since you guys have used a circle, but remember, I'm going to pull this a little bit out. When I use the circle tool, circle, come on. The first thing it asks me is a center point. That's a piece of cake, right? Well, the center point is this intersection. And you can see it's not grabbing it. Well, that's because of my object snap settings, okay? So if I right-click, shift right-click, I can go to object snap settings, and I can click intersection. But I don't like intersection to run all the time, just personally. So what I do is shift right-click, and if you select right here, you can also see intersection, and you say, well, that's the same thing. In this case, it's not. This allows intersection to be used, but just one time, okay? And now this is the other thing to remember, okay? This has to be a specific diameter, which is 1. But AutoCAD, if you look at the command window, understands radii. By default, it wants everything to be a radius. However, if you want to type in a diameter, you just click diameter right here, or you hit letter D, spacebar, and now it says what? Specify the diameter of a circle. So I type in 1, and I'm sound as a pound, okay? Now, instead of, what I can do is I got two options. I can copy this from that center point and move it to there, okay? But I want to show you one other thing that you can do. I don't need these. Remember, they're not part of the drawing. I can also go ahead and copy something from a given point, and I can put it on, and when that polar light, the green dashed line, I'm just going to start calling it polar, when it happens, I can go down and I type in 1. So you can copy something a specific distance, okay? So now all I need to do is draw a line. And if your quadrant object snap isn't on, quadrant is the one that picks circles up at 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. And we can adjust those positions as well. But if your quadrant is not on, shift and right click, go to object snap settings, okay? And make sure you have quadrant turned on, because you're going to use this in the rest of the multi-view drawings, okay? Almost all of them have curves. And I'm going to draw from the 9 o'clock quadrant to the 9 o'clock quadrant. And I can hit spacebar because I'm going to draw another line, so it just repeats the command. I can go from the 3 o'clock quadrant to the 3 o'clock quadrant, right click enter. All I have to do is get rid of the guts here. So I'm going to go TR space, right click, select that, and I have now successfully completed the top view. Okay. So the right view, let's go ahead and get that established, all right? And I'm going to go ahead and move this over a little bit so that I can work over here. Again, side views are always next to front views. Top views are always above front views, okay? If I were to draw a bottom in this, the bottom would be under the front, right? Think about it like origami, like you're unfolding origami, okay? So here's a construction line. I'm going to go ahead and click this. I'm going to come over. And again, why? Because that helps me with alignment, right? So I can go ahead and turn this layer off. And the object at its widest or at its tallest point is 4. So if I draw a line up here that's 4 high, guess what happens? It perfectly aligns. The object didn't shrink or grow. And the depth of the object, when I talk about depth, I don't mean like a swimming pool. I mean from front to back, okay? If you walk into your bedroom, the depth of the room is the distance of the wall away from where you're standing. So I type in 4, and that means I'm going to come down 4, and I'm going to come over, all right? And this one I think is pretty easy because we have this shelf area, which comes up 1. So I go offset, 1, all right? And we can't see anything about the hole right now, but we can see that we have this where this face along the right side of the object is split, right? Part of it projects out and part of it projects back. We can't see the projection, but we could see the edge. If you look where it's at 2. So I'm going to go offset 2, right? But this line does not go through here, okay? TR space. Nope, not MText, TR space. This line does not go through the shelf, all right? And you're like, wait, this is all wrong because this is supposed to be, it's supposed to be a slope. Okay, so let's do this. I can either offset this up 1, right? Or I could just use my construction line trick, right? And I could draw a line right on top of this from this point up a height of 1. And now connect the dots. Okay, this line goes away. So does this. What happens next? Trim, TR spacebar. I can grab all of this. When you're selecting stuff, people are still having a little trouble. When you select multiple objects, if you go from right to left, it'll grab kind of goofy stuff. When you go from, left to right, when you go click once and go bottom right to top left, it'll work a little bit better for you, okay? And then this is on the wrong layer, right? How can I change it? I can click here, come up, and just select object lines, and it still turns blue. I just hit escape, and now I'm at my right view, and everything is perfect. So this is the perfect final product of the let me do a zoom window, Z space, W space. This is a good one to remember. If you want to get the biggest version of everything that you're looking at on the screen, this is exactly the correct solution to multi-view number 2. Okay, so go through this and use it, and to help, go through it step by step, and good luck. And I think you guys should be fine. Okay. Look forward to seeing it. Remember, use the snip tool. Make this as big as possible, okay? If you're going to snip this, don't snip it down at that size. Snip it this size, okay? The next assignment, we're going to start turning in a little bit differently, but for this one, we can use snip, okay? Good luck. Have fun.